All right, also going on in California, openings resumed in the celebrity stylist murder trial of Monica Sementilli for a continuation of the state's lengthy opening statement. Sementilli is facing murder and conspiracy charges in connection to the death of her husband, famed hairstylist Fabio Sementilli. Now, prosecutors say she conspired with her lover, 61-year-old Robert Baker, to kill her Beverly Hills hairdresser husband back in January of 2017. Well, Baker is currently serving a life sentence after pleading no contest to murder charges. He claims that Monica had nothing to do with Fabio's death, and he may testify for the defense. The trial began last Friday with the state delivering an almost 4-hour-long partial opening statement. Well, the trial resumed today with more opening statements. Well, the judge isn't allowing us to broadcast the celebrity stylist murder trial live. There's about a 30-minute delay that we have to provide. So we'll bring it to you with that half-hour delay from our camera in that courtroom. So we're going to go inside that courtroom now. The state is continuing to lay out its theory of the case.
The defendant was followed to this location, the Dime Bar on Fairfax Avenue, by a surveillance unit, the Gangs and Narcotics Division. As you recall, I talked about the fact that the defendant and Baker went into the location for a while, that the defendant came back out. She was smoking a cigarette, and they observed as she began speaking with the bouncer, began rubbing the bouncer's inner thigh area, grabbed him by the back of the neck and began kissing him, and that those observations will be testified to by Detectives Chang and Anaya during the course of this trial over the next several weeks. The next day, the evening of February 22nd, so remember the defendant is out on the 21st at the Dime Bar. Her daughter is texting her, "Where are you? When are you going to be home?" The surveillance detectives follow the defendant and Baker back to this location. I think I mentioned this also last week. This was a friend of Baker's, Roger Brown, who you'll hear from in this case, who lived at 331 Salem in Glendale. And after the murder, Baker stayed for a few days with, you'll hear about Sheila Salahian and Ricardo Cabrera. And then after that, towards the end of February, he's staying in Glendale, and the defendant's going back and forth from Glendale to pick him up at night for them to go out. This is a picture of that location, and what you're going to hear is in the early morning hours, around 2:55 in the morning, when the defendant and Baker finally get back to the Salem address where Baker is staying at the time with Roger Brown, Detective Chang installs a GPS tracker on Baker's black Ford Expedition, which is what you see here, and the vehicle was parked at that time in the parking garage of this location. The following day, February 23rd, at about 10:28, the defendant posted this. Again, as you read this, you can see how the evidence shows how persuasive she is in trying to get people who are reading these public posts, that being the victim's family and friends, her own family, the co-workers, everybody that knows her. She's posting this on a public platform in order to get across the message that you've seen in multiple posts such as this, that she is completely devastated and heartbroken. So again, as I mentioned last week, showing you the dichotomy once again, and this is almost on a daily basis, between the fake public image that she's posting versus what's going on behind the scenes in her actual life. Later that same night, on February 23rd of 2017, it would be 1 month after the murder of Fabio Sementilli at 9:17 p.m., the defendant once again posts to Instagram along with a photo of Fabio and this caption. Your Honor, could you please inform the jury why it is that they are not seeing the photographs that she's posting?
So, for legal reasons, I have limited the people to showing 2 photos of the decedent in life and no more. It's not because of them, it's because of me, and it's because of legal issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, she posts a picture of Fabio along with this message. That's why the background that you see seems to be similar on all of these Instagram posts. So if you know about how Instagram looks, you get the idea of what her page looks like, but we're not allowed to show you the actual photos. So she posts a picture of him. This is the caption that she writes, once again, trying to get across her her sentiment to the public and to everybody that knows her or Fabio that this is really what she's feeling on the inside. Yet, as you know, from listening to what I said on Friday and what I continue to talk about this morning, she spent the entire month after her husband of 20 years was slaughtered in their backyard, either with her lover, Robert Baker, or, as you heard, sending him naked photographs of herself or close-up photos of her intimate body parts.
All right, we'll step aside here and take a break, but before we do, we have an update for you in the Long Island serial killer case. Suspect Rex Uerman was back in a New York courtroom today. The New York architect is facing murder charges in a string of deaths on Long Island dating back to the 1990s. In December, he was charged in the death of a 7th woman. Today's hearing was for a motion by the defense to exclude DNA evidence used to tie him to the murders. The prosecution's case is based in large part on DNA from hairs found on 6 of the women linked to Uerman or his family members. Well, the state argued the DNA should be allowed because the lab process to determine the DNA match is widely used and reliable. But attorneys for Uerman say the evidence should be excluded because it's not accurate, and this type of DNA hasn't really been used in New York courts before. And DNA isn't the only thing tying Uerman to the murders. There are also phone records and what appear to be planning documents found on his hard drive. Uerman's lawyers are also seeking separate trials for the murder charges. Uerman maintains his innocence and is due back in court for another hearing on February 18th. All right, we're taking that break now. Coming up on Court TV, the state tells jurors about the numerous calls that the defendant made to detectives to ensure that she collects her late husband's life insurance money. The best of opening statements in the celebrity stylist murder trial of Monica Sementilli when we return. Keep it here on Court TV.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, a Florida teen who shot and killed his father now stands trial for stabbing his mother. We're diving deeper into today's opening statements and testimony.
Closing Arguments, tonight at 8, 7 Central, only on Court TV. Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan with the latest and breaking true crime stories.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan Investigates, tonight, 9, 8 Central, only on Court TV.
Shop low cost.
I feel like I hold one of the key positions in the industry for hairdressers. And with that comes a lot of responsibility.
We're in the celebrity stylist murder trial of Monica Sementilli. So let's bring in our guest for this hour. Joining us to discuss, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor David Bruno. David, great to see you. Thank you so much, as always, for being with us on the program. First and foremost, I want to ask you a very quick question. David, what's the longest, you're a very experienced trial attorney, both sides of the aisle, prosecutor, defense attorney. What's the longest opening statement you've ever given?
I would say 6 hours, Michael.
6 hours?
I mean, look. Yeah. Look, I mean, when I have the opportunity, look, there are some complex cases out there. Homicide cases, you know, it's important to lay it out. I mean, and I know that there are a lot of critics out there for lengthy statements, but if it's a complex case, I don't have a problem going long.
All right, so in this case, we're going on 5 hours. So what are the pros and cons? Again, and that was exactly what she said in the beginning. She said, I'm going to go for a while. This is a complex case, a lot to go through. To be honest with you, I don't see it as that complex. But anyway, I want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, sure. This is going to be circumstantial. I mean, look at this. We are in 2025, and technology has been key. And that's going to be the key to this case, right? Because you got the motive, check. That is clear, crystal clear as can be. But how do you tie it into the assailant himself? You know, that's going to be it. And the text messages before, during, I know they have some surveillance. They also have an argument that she was watching. You know, so we are going to see how they tie it in. And the wild card's going to be the boyfriend. Does he come in? Is he called? And if so, who's he going to be called by? Because if he comes in and exonerates her, it's going to be a very difficult prosecution for the state.
You know, it's interesting that you say the motive is very clear, because one of the things that the defense says is that it's not very clear, that she had no reason to kill her husband. She clearly was having this affair. You know, people have affairs. It doesn't make them killers. We hear that oftentimes, but sometimes, in fact, it does make them killers. But they say that 1.2 or 1.9, whatever amount of millions it wasn't very much money. She wasn't living that high on the hog, et cetera, et cetera. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I think it fits the box. Now, whether or not it's going to get them home, it's not going to get them home all the way. You know, it's not even required, Michael, and we talk about this a lot. We were just heard from the lawyer in the last conviction, and he said, you know, or the prosecutor in the last conviction saying that we didn't need to prove it. They don't have to bring it forward. But on a case like this, where you have another person that did it, and then she is clearly in a different location at the time of the homicide, you're going to have to tie it together with the assailant. And one of the ways to do it is with motive, and then the other is going to be technology. And I am really, really ready to hear what the communications were, and if there's anything in the communications that ties her in, because just being in a adultery relationship doesn't get you all the way there, and they're going to need more, if you ask me.
All right, fair enough. Let's go back into court now, folks. For day 2 of the celebrity stylist murder trial in California, the state is still delivering its opening statements.
She says she's making a therapy appointment for the next day. Just to remind you, Isabella, at this point in time, she's a 16-year-old girl who found her father stabbed to death. And so this evidence demonstrates for you how important Baker must be to the defendant in order to
Overrule.
This evidence demonstrates once again how important Baker must be to the defendant in order to allow her child to suffer like this alone at home in this house. And you can see the defendant's response, and then what you see that she does is she tries to make her daughter, as you can see, feel guilty by saying, oh, I'm so hurt and disappointed, I'm coming home. Well, she's obviously not going to come home. So you can see that at this point, the daughter has no choice, because now she feels guilty for making her mother feel guilty or bad. And so she says, never mind, it's fine. And that's at 10:20. Then the eldest daughter texts her mother separately saying, don't feel bad, have fun being out. And of course, at this point in time, the defendant is still at the Laugh Factory. I mentioned that one of the defendant's close friends was a woman by Deborah Obad, who took a couple of photographs, if you recall, of Baker at the wake that took place at the family home on January 29th. Remember those photographs I showed you? And in one of those photographs, if you looked close, you could see that he had a bandage on his index finger, and in the other photo, he was sitting close to the defendant near the fire pit, right in the area where he had slashed Fabio to death days before. On the morning of March 11th, Deborah Obad, who suspects the defendant is having an affair, knows that the defendant is lying, drives by the Sementilli home and sees Baker's Ford Expedition parked in front. So she takes this particular photograph and then sends it over to LAPD detectives Verna and Parshall because she's tipping them off again about Robert Baker. But recall, as of February 14th, she had tipped them off about Baker, but on February 14th, they got confirmation via the initial round of DNA evidence that was analyzed. 3 days later, on March 14th, at about 1 in the afternoon, the defendant posts this to Instagram with a photograph of Fabio. Again, indicating she is his proud wife. Again, with the hashtag love of my life that you'll see in a few minutes. On March 16th, the defendant calls Detective Parshall again. Remember, I told you that throughout the course of the investigation, when Valley Bureau Homicide was handling it, she would call on a regular basis because she wanted to know where they were at in their investigation, what evidence they had, and that Detective Parshall and Detective Verna were not going to release anything, and so they kept making excuses to throw her off the trail because they didn't want her to be able to destroy any evidence or to interrupt their investigation. And at this point, she's asking specifically about DNA results from the samples that were collected from Fabio's Porsche. She again mentions to Detective Parshall in this recorded phone call that she's anxious to collect the life insurance proceeds. Remember, we talked about how she started making inquiry about the proceeds the very night of the murder and had her friend Deborah Obad texting the CEO of the company, Sal Mocheri, about the life insurance because Monica was asking, and he found it so unusual that he was showing it to people in HR. And she says here in this call that not only is she anxious to collect the life insurance proceeds, but that the HR department at Fabio's company, Wella, needs confirmation from LAPD in order to clear her name so she can get the money. And you'll hear a recording of that call. On the same day, after making that call to Detective Parshall at about, let's say 10:45 that night, March 16th, again, the defendant posts to her public Instagram account a photograph of her husband, Fabio, along with this caption.
The defendant very demonstrative there during the opening statement by the state. All right, we'll step aside here, folks, for a quick break. When we come back, the prosecutor details what detectives say Sementilli did as soon as she learned that the insurance money had cleared and the evidence found on her phone. More on the celebrity stylist murder trial of Monica Sementilli when we return. Keep it here on Court TV. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Michael Ayala, back now to California for the celebrity stylist murder trial of Monica Sementilli. Now, she's charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder in the death of her husband, famed Hollywood hairstylist Fabio Sementilli. Fabio's youngest daughter found him stabbed to death inside of her home back in January of 2017. Well, prosecutors claim that Monica and the man that she was having an affair with, Robert Baker, killed Fabio to cash in on his $1 million life insurance policy. All right, let's get back into court now, where we're continuing with the opening statement of the state.
These are a couple of the articles that she pulled up so that she could read about what the police would be able to see on her phone. On June 9th of 2017 at 6 o'clock at night, Detective Parshall sends the defendant an email, which is a ruse. Again, it's fake. It's meant to stimulate, to see what she'll do. He says, we're clear, because she's been asking for months. We're clear on the letter for the life insurance. My secretary is typing it up. And MetLife, the life insurance carrier for Fabio's policy, should have it by the end of next week or the following week. Now, at this point in time, the LAPD, Detective Parshall, and Verna are having communications because, as I told you, robbery homicide detectives are going to take over this case, and they are now in the planning stages on taking down the defendant and her lover, Robert Baker, for the murder of Fabio Sementilli. And so to calm her down so she stops bothering them, calling daily, and to see what she'll do, they send this message to her saying, you're all clear for the life insurance. We're going to send it off now to the company, and you'll be getting your money. And what the defendant does in response is she takes a screenshot of Parchal's email, and who does she send it to? She sends it to Robert Baker. And this email is found on Baker's SD card again, item 157. So this is, again, evidence showing the two of them involved in this conspiracy to get rid of Fabio and to be able to receive his life insurance. After receiving the email from Detective Parchal expecting to be cleared to receive Fabio's life insurance proceeds, the defendant it goes to New York for Fabio's niece's graduation from medical school, and then there flies with Fabio's family back to Toronto for what you'll hear was the Mirror Awards, a large-scale award ceremony in Canada that took place where she went to accept a Lifetime Achievement Award that was given to Fabio. And so what you see here on her flight back, on the top left or in the lounge before, she's taking selfies of herself drinking wine or champagne. This is these two photos, the one on the left and the one in the center in the middle, were taken June 13th of 2017 that she sends to Baker. You can see here she appears to be wearing Baker's Army t-shirt. I told you that Baker previously served time in the Army. The photograph on the top right, based on the bedding, that is a photograph that is taken on Baker's bed in his bedroom on May 31st of 2017, wearing that same shirt. These were recovered from Baker's SD card, item number 157. The photograph on the top right was recovered from Baker's SD card 102. So as I mentioned, not only was the defendant able to have numerous conversations with her co-conspirator Robert Baker face-to-face when they were together, but they also were able to have communications on the use of encrypted apps. And I talked about Viber with you, and I talked about how they changed to WhatsApp after the murder. You can see here on the date of the murder, on the date of their arrest, they are communicating, and you can see at the top, there is, in blue with the red arrow, it indicates that this is end-to-end encryption, and it deletes out what their communication was. However, the two messages beneath that, the defendant did not yet have time to either delete them, but what she says that morning on June 14th, not knowing she and Baker are due to be arrested that day after returning home from Toronto the night before, is that she's on her computer cleaning up, deleting various items.
All right, we'll step aside here, but when we come back, jurors get to hear snippets of police recordings of the defendant and her lover after they were arrested in connection to the murder of Fabio Sementilli. So keep it locked on Court TV, your front row seat to justice.
On closing arguments, a Florida teen who shot and killed his father now stands trial for stabbing his mother. We're diving deeper into today's opening statements and testimony.
Closing arguments tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
It's a whodunit Hollywood story.
Monica Sementilli is accused of plotting to kill her husband.
Celebrity hairstylist Fabio Sementilli.
The Celebrity Stylist murder trial, weekday mornings, only on Court TV.
We're taking you back inside that courtroom in California for the celebrity stylist murder trial of Monica Sementilli. Jurors heard snippets of audio that investigators captured of the defendant and her lover's conversation during an arrest while they sat handcuffed in the back of a police vehicle. You won't believe what they say to each other. Take a listen.
Listen. I know. Listen. Gotta get a lawyer.
So there you heard the defendant telling Baker, deny everything and not to talk. So she's calling the shots. That tells you everything you need to know about the defendant's role in this case.
Somebody did this.
Okay, so when you hear him say protocol, and you're going to hear that in other lockup recordings, that indicates to you that they previously discussed and planned what to do if they were arrested, to stay silent and deny everything, to stay in protocol.
I'm sorry? That was argument. Proceed.
You can also see the defendant tells him somebody talked, meaning somebody in our conspiracy talked. Somebody who knew what they did spoke.
This I'll allow.
On June 14, 2017, after her arrest, you're going to hear that the defendant was informed by LAPD detectives of the results of the DNA evidence at the crime scene belonging to her lover, Robert Baker. Despite that she was advised that Baker's blood was found all over the crime scene, that he was the one who murdered her husband and the father of her daughters, you're going to hear that she continued telling Baker how much she loved him and wanted to be with him after their criminal cases concluded during the time they were in custody. On June 14th, they were taken to the Van Nuys police station. That was the closest station to where they were arrested, and that they were placed into recording cells, again, custodial cells that had recording devices. You're going to hear that her cellmate Cynthia was an undercover agent, the same type of operation that I told you about that occurred with Christopher Austin after his arrest in Vancouver, Washington. And you're going to hear that the defendant began by talking about Fabio, that he was the greatest man that ever existed, that he was loved by everybody, that he was somebody who was full of integrity and character, that he was the love of her life, which obviously was a lie because you're going to hear she says that to Baker, that she never cheated on Fabio, which you now saw was also a lie, that she used to teach business and accounting when she and Fabio owned salons in Toronto, which is evidence of her financial knowledge. And she also talks about her computer being in their upstairs office. You'll hear about that particular item of evidence, which is an HP desktop. You'll also hear her talk about the fact that she knew Robert Baker for about 1.5 to 2 years, that he's a good friend of hers, not her boyfriend, which again is a lie, as you've seen, that she didn't want a boyfriend or a husband. However, as you heard, she was married and Baker was her boyfriend, and you're going to hear that she agreed to marry Baker, that she talks to Baker on the phone every couple days. You're going to see from the evidence that also was a lie because they spoke multiple times every day. She tells the cellmate the opposite of what she told law enforcement, which is that Baker had been to the house many times, but they are close friends but not lovers, which, as you heard, was a lie. You'll hear the defendant again lie, saying she wasn't hiding anything, but again, you've heard for yourself and seen for yourself some of the evidence from last week and today, which indicates that's a lie. That every time she and Baker go out, they go out with a group of friends, not alone. You've now heard about the surveillance. That's another lie. That she doesn't even have or even know what an encrypted application is. Again, another lie, as I told you, she was using at least 2 of them, Viber before and WhatsApp after the murder. That she wasn't seeing Baker romantically before Fabio was killed. Again, another lie. She tells her cellmate that Baker is her confidant, her lover, her everything. And then without any prompt, she brings up on her own the murder was not for money, was not for gain, and alleges that $10,000 along with jewelry was stolen. And you'll see that when she brings that up, again, she brings that up totally spontaneously on her own, not in response to any comment or question by the cellmate. You're then going to see that the defendant continued her affair post-arrest in custody while they were positioned in cells next to each other.